Money mistakes can be super costly. Get it? Which is why I'm going to share with you the 7 money mistakes that I've made in my 20s so you don't have to. For most people, your early 20s is when you start to earn an income for the first time in your life. So it's also going to coincide with the time in your life where you make the most money mistakes. Let's recap some of mine, shall we? Not looking at money every day. Everybody with a job knows exactly how much they earn. Yet not everybody knows how much money is leaving their bank account each month. And the reason for that isn't because people are stupid, it's because it's uncomfortable to find out that you're spending too much. So how does looking at your bank account every day help with this? Well, it's a bit like ripping off a plaster really quickly. Fuck! You need to get uncomfortable with doing the uncomfortable. And knowing your outgoings is vital if you ever want to build wealth going forward. Imagine your overheads were larger than your income. You'd be going into debt by the second without even realizing. Yeah, I'm screwed. But let me show you what it might look like if you did start to look at your bank account. Let's just get this over with already. Holy shit, why am I still paying for those 4 subscriptions? And in total, that's £450 I can scrap from this month's expenses. Or something like that, you get the picture. The next mistake is being frugal. When I was a teenager, I hated spending my money for one main reason. I didn't have any. But the problem is you get to your 20s and you tend to keep this mindset despite now earning money, which can be a really bad thing. When you try and cheap out on things, yes, in the short term it feels way better, but in the long term it's gonna cause you so much more pain because of how often you have to replace it. Take my AirPods. I spent years trying to find the best knockoff version, but they were all pretty rubbish and lasted 3 months max, which meant that over 2 years I probably spent the same amount on replicas as it would have cost me to buy 1 pair of AirPods. If I had switched my mindset and bought the AirPods from the start, I would have spent the same amount of money, had less stress from the product breaking all the time, and had the best version of the product from the start. I won't be making that mistake again. Not setting an hourly rate. When you start to earn an income, one thing you should do is to set an hourly rate for your time. Let's make it up at £20 an hour. Now let's say you could pay someone £15 an hour to clean your house. It makes sense to outsource that. Unless you enjoy cleaning your house, in which case, keep polishing those plates. You don't need to be earning that money during the time period that you're outsourcing that task. What it does is it allows you to buy back that time. You can exercise, build that side project, or just hang out with friends. And this is something I wish I did earlier in my 20s, especially as I started to grow on TikTok. At that time, I chose to give up creating YouTube videos because I didn't have time for it. I was dedicating 80% of my creative time to editing TikToks. In theory, I should have outsourced editing because it was below my hourly rate. But instead, I chose to be frugal and do it myself. And as a result, I didn't make a YouTube video for 2 years. It's only now that I understand the value of my time and it's made me a happier and better creator. Moving out of home too soon. My parents are gonna love that I said that. When I was 24, I decided that it was time for me to move out from home. I was working at Barclays, I had a side income from TikTok. I felt like it was the right time. Now, before moving out of home, I thought the cost would be the price of my rent, £12,000 a year. A lot of money, but I could afford that. What I didn't realize, probably a bit naively, was that bills were another 2K on that, food another £1,800 a year, and furnishing it was an extra 1,000, taking the actual cost from 12K to 17K. Do I regret moving out? No. Would I do it again given what I know now? Probably still. Would I tell people to consider the full expenditure, which could be way more than just the rent which they think it might be before moving out? Absolutely. Not investing in myself earlier. This might just be the biggest money mistake that I made in my 20s. And even though my channel constantly preaches about investing in the stock market as early as possible, this one could be even more important. In your early 20s, your earnings are quite literally at their lowest point. So when you head over to those investment calculators and type in what £100 a month might earn you in 40 years, your mind is gonna be blown. But instead, what if you could invest that money to upskill yourself and double, if not triple, your earning potential? Yes, £100 after 40 years will turn into £4,000, but an £100 investment into yourself could total far more than £4,000 over that same time period. But who am I for you to listen to? Warren Buffett says it way better than me.
By far the best investment you can make is in yourself. For example, communication skills. I tell the students that come that if they just learn to communicate better, and both in writing and in person, they increase their value at least 50%.
You know what they say about great minds? Buying a car, or should I say buying a brand new car. Technically this isn't a mistake I've made, but it's one that so many people make in their early 20s that I wanted to include it. I've never spent a penny on buying a car. The car I use right now is a hand down from my older siblings, and yes, I know that's an extremely privileged position to be in. Cars are one of the biggest liabilities that you can own, with them literally losing 10% in value when you drive them off the lot. But because of social pressures these days, so many young people are being pressured into buying vehicles that they can't afford, or worse than that, leasing them with extremely high interest rates. If instead you can learn to avoid these comparison traps and buy a second-hand practical vehicle, then you could use that money and put it towards an asset that will grow it instead. And perhaps one day in the future, using that asset, you can buy that dream vehicle you've always wanted to. One book that preaches that message is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I suppose as a quick mini sub-lesson mistake not to make, don't avoid this book during your early 20s. Now let's take a look at hidden costs. When I was 16, I thought my local barbers were so overpriced at £15. So instead, I went out and I found this barber that was a little bit further away that cost £11. The issue? It was 15 minutes on the bus each way to get to that barber, which cost £2. So when you calculate it, I was spending an extra 30 minutes getting somewhere to save £2. Even at the age of 16, I think my time was worth more than £4 an hour. Maybe not. Let me compare two job offers to show you how this mistake is made when choosing your job in your early 20s. Job A is at a chilled company where they want you in the office twice a week and it's a 15-minute cycle to get there. Job B has a formal culture, wants you in the office 4 days a week, takes an hour to get there and back, but their salary is £5,000 higher. From the outside, take job B, it pays more. But let's dive into this a little bit further. Job B will cost £4,000 a year in travel costs, you'll need to spend £1,000 on clothes to fit in at the office, and it's 2 hours of travel every day. Meanwhile, job A has 0 travel costs, you don't need to buy any new clothes, and it's half an hour of travel a day. All of a sudden, you have 2 jobs that technically have the same salary. The earlier you start calculating these hidden costs, the better you'll be for it. So those were the 7 money mistakes I wish I hadn't made. Actually, one I didn't. And I hope by watching this, you don't make those mistakes, or if you do, you'll have to learn the hard way like I did. And if you did enjoy this video, you could always check out another one on the channel that you'll definitely enjoy. Why are you still here? Watch it already.